I challenged myself to commit to 8 weeks of solid building. 8 weeks, each week with a new theme. The first week, as you can see, we focused on organics. The second week, we moved around the world and looked at Asian architecture. That was a fun one. That was a really fun one. The third week, we went through history and looked at different Western architectural styles, and I learned a lot of really big and hard to say words. The fourth week, well, let's have a quick reveal. The fourth week, we went through and looked at movies and TV series. Oh, and this is a much better angle. Why was I not walking like this before? The fifth week, we went through and did armor stands. This was a lot of fun, my favorite mod. The week after that, we looked at terraforming. Lots of terraforming, a lot of challenge, well, again, a lot of fun. Week 7, we went through and looked at vehicles. Lots of different vehicles, built a bunch of vehicles. And this week, week 8, the final week, we recapped the whole thing. We went through week by week and did a little recap. And yeah, I committed to 8 weeks. This time 8 weeks ago, I built that tree that you can see in the corner. And now we have finished it, and we are here with 8 weeks of magnificently fun builds. So we're kicking this week off with an organic, and of course I am building a cat. So this is Ramen. He's a cat who's turned up in a couple of my series and will hopefully continue to turn up. But like always, most of my animal organics, I always start with the nose and the eyes. And this is very similar when I'm drawing as well. I always start with the nose and the eyes. For a color palette, because Ramen is an orange tabby cat, I had pretty much a limited block selection. I had red sandstone, acacia, and copper. And I chose not to use acacia because I didn't like the texture of the planks. But basically what I'm doing is just trying to flesh out shapes and blocks. And again, similar to drawing from that experience of when I'm sketching, I just sketch out blocks and big chunky shapes, and then I'll go in and refine details later. So you see on that leg, I did a straight line down and then filled around it. You can see I built it a little too high, so I dropped him down a bit. And this is where my time-lapsing skills need a bit of work. And on the back, I really struggled, and looking back on it now, I feel like it was too scooped around the nape of the neck. I feel like I could have, or too curved around the nape of the neck. I feel like I could have scooped it a little bit more and made it less harsh of a bulge shape. But yeah, organics are very hard, guys. I'm really happy with the front, not so fussed on the back, but you know, it's not a terrible build. It's also not my best build, but from the front, he's a very cute kitty, and he was a lot of fun to build, even if he was a bit of a challenge. So I started this build with the base because a lot of the pictures that I looked at had this structured tiered base with stairs coming up the front. And so I started the build by using that. And to create the overhang with the slabs, I opted for walls rather than full blocks just to add that depth. And then once I'd built in the stairs, I went through and started building the actual building. So I did a plain terracotta box because the internal part isn't actually much of the detail of what I was focusing on. I was really wanting to focus on the roofs and the alcoves. So you can see me going around now and adding some of the detail, trying to get that diagonal and that slope right. And you can see I went back a few times and fixed it, changed it, tweaked it just to get the slope correct, because a lot of these buildings that I was looking at had these unique pointed roofs so that they were sloped on the top but also on the bottom as well. And so I went through and did that with the tiered, of course. A lot of Asian architecture tends to have a tiered roof effect, so again went through and did that. And then of course final tier on the top, added a couple of details with fences and shelves. And on the final roof, just continued it to a gold point, quite typical of a lot of Asian architecture actually, ending with that gold point. And yeah, I think this turned out pretty well. It is a very monotonous color palette, but I think it works. So for this build, I picked one block as my base, and I decided to use jungle because I felt that matched a lot of the vibes of pictures that I've been seeing quite a bit. And then I went through and built these arches and just tried to get the shape right. And so there was a bit of back and forth. You could see me deleting and then redoing the arches, using the signs, the shelves, and the trapdoors. and then I went through and made the difference between the windows and the doors, and then went up to the second floor. Now this is where things got a little bit complicated because the windows are very curved. Like the two end ones are basically ovals, and then the one in the middle is this big loopy shape. So I was relying a lot on stairs and slabs as well as trapdoors to try and get that shape. And you see me here going in and just trying to get the curve right. There's a bit of back and forth, and then also detailing as well. I was trying very hard to detail as I went. And that also helped with getting the curves right, because a lot of the details with the trapdoors or shelves also add to the curve. And you can see here I've got my maths wrong, so I move the blocks over and get the right shape. And then this was quite fun. Something I haven't really done a lot was play with glazed terracotta. So I got to play with that a little bit just to get some detail, and then went along with the roof. I probably could have made the roof higher. Definitely could have made the roof higher. But yeah, this is the final build. I'm quite happy with it. Quite colorful, quite cute. Definitely a challenge. I had not heard of this style before, but it was a lot of fun to try and get right. So today we are building Bond from Spy Family, and this presented a particularly difficult challenge because there are no nice white trapdoors or shelf blocks or anything. There is pale oak, and you can see me using that a little bit, but it is a bit pinkish, not just a pure white. So I basically only had full blocks to work with, except in the shadows when I could use polished diorite, but that was it. So that definitely presented a bit of a challenge, but I decided let's give it a shot. So I started, of course, with the nose and the eyes, got that shape right, and then moved on to the head, trying to get the dome shape right. And you can see me, I go back and forth a little bit and then get the curve right. And then I map out the sides. With this build, I did a lot of map, take a step back, go in, adjust, take a step back. And you can see that a lot as I go back and forth across the screen. It's a lot of just checking that I'm doing the shape right, because like I said, I have no shelves, I have no stairs, I have no slab blocks that I can really use in this build. So I have to get the shape bang on with the full blocks, and to do that it's a lot of back and forth, checking that I've got the shape right, stepping back, checking that I've got it right again, stepping back again. And it's just constant back and forth, getting the shape right, basically sculpting it. Then I go through and add his little bow tie, and yeah, I'm actually really happy with how he turned out. For once, I don't have a squabble complaint with the shape. I think it worked out. I made a critical error and forgot to press play on the recap of this little guy behind me. Recap, replay, time-lapse recording of this guy behind me, and I ended up just showing off my card collection and even finding a new Mimikyu that I didn't know I actually had. But yeah, not a lot to say for this. I guess this one made me excited because I got to use the bamboo block for a color that actually works rather than substituting it for a bright yellow. But yeah, there's not a lot I can say about this because I forgot to record it. So to build the volcano, I started at the very top and mapped out a bit of a ring, and then mapped out the sides, trying to get that curve right, because one thing I've mentioned a lot is struggling with that scooping curve. So I tried to map it out and get it done first. And then I went with a gradient of dead brain coral, I'm pretty sure, acacia logs, pale oak logs, tough, but I think I ended up changing it to basalt, polished basalt. I'm pretty sure it's called polished basalt, the one with the curves in the middle, the circly bits, bath salts, yep, because I can't remember its actual name. And then went into cobble deep slate at the very end. But because I'd already mapped out the curves, it was mainly just filling in between and getting the gradient of the blocks right. So that was what I was focusing on for this one, really trying to get the curve and the shape of the volcano right. And you can see me here as well, mapping out the curves, making it circular and trying to break the bigger pieces into smaller pieces so it would look right. And then I got to do the part that I love, adding detail. So I went through with coal blocks to get that ashy, charcoaly, burnt look, and then shroom lights as lava with glass over the top to get that glowing, bright, fiery lava look. And this part was the most fun, going through, adding the details, adding a bit of smoke and steam out the top with glass, adding the lights, adding the lava, adding the details was the best part, and I'm actually quite pleased with the shape. So to round off the final week, we were looking at vehicles because week 7 was vehicles and I'm building a submarine. So I opted to look at like an old steampunk, heavily inspired type of submarine because there's a lot more visual interest to it. So I used the waxed, lightly weathered copper as my main base and then textured with my just plain waxed copper. And I really tried to get the shape right. You can see me here going back and forth a little bit trying to get the shape right with stairs and slabs. And once I got a shape that I was happy with, I worked through and just kind of detailed as I went for this one. So I got to use a lot of copper bars, lightning rods, and copper golems to add visual interest. And then you can see me here going through and doing the propeller. And then this one struggled a little bit with. I was trying to get the shape right and I eventually settled on spruce trapdoors, but then it wasn't quite sitting right. So I went through and added slabs and shelves just to make it look a bit more, you know, like it would have some weight to it. Then I went through, did the top, and because it was completely symmetrical, I just flipped it and pasted it again, copy and paste, you know, learning world edit, learning Axiom in this. This was part of the journey. I also learned a little bit of Axiom on this journey. But you can see me going through and adding a bunch of little details. This was a really fun one. And then here using iron bars as like a rope chain. But this was so fun because there were so many little intricate details. This whole journey has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming along with me on the ride. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you did, maybe consider subscribing. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, drop a comment, and I will see you guys, well, next time.